Hey everyone, I'm sorry about the light. I am recording this during the day because I know that it's going to take me a full overnight to let these dry. But if you didn't see the live on Lindy K and Sean Designs, Miss Debbie Epps was showing me her process on dyeing papers with RIT dye. And I wanted to show you how some of those came out. If you saw that live, you would get to see some of the goodies that came from that. And most of the things, this is a placemat. That's what kind of stencil. Isn't that cool? That's a placemat too. A lot of these on the top are placemats. And I won't bother you with all of them, but I wanted you to see some of the neat designs we got out of it. And this is a stencil. Isn't that neat? And then some of them, that's a stencil too. I like these. This was when I was running out of stencils and things, so I just started painting it with the RIT dye, and I think that looked really neat. There's another placemat. I think, honestly, my placemats, of course, this is a stencil, came out the best. And so, for me. Now, hers, she uses stencils, and they come out wonderful. Of course, I don't think I was quite following procedure like I was supposed to either. Isn't that a neat look? And I was using, oh, that's like a typewriter stencil. Isn't that neat? Got it upside down, but anyway, that's some of the things that came from that, and I thought they turned out beautiful. And I used some, let's see, I think an orange RIT dye, and I don't know. I'll link that live below so you can see, because it does say on there what colors we were all using. But I just used a whole bunch of different papers. Oh, and this was the slick paper, because we didn't think the slick paper would work. It wasn't super slick, but it had some shine to it. And we were afraid that it would stick together. Well, it didn't, but the tip to it was, and Debbie told me this, open it up before it dries. So when it's real, I mean, it's not soaking wet anymore, but it's still wet. I opened it up, laid it flat, and I didn't have any issues with it at all. And as you can tell, it's not as shiny anymore. So I love that. Here's some of the music paper. And another tip that she gave during the live, which apparently I decided to not hear. This is some ledger paper. Didn't that turn out grungy? Was get your whole paper wet. Make sure it's completely wet. And that is important, especially if you have them stacked on top of each other, because where it's not completely wet, it will stick. So as long as you have your papers completely, ooh, that's a neat one. That's a stencil too. And that was also the shiny paper. This is a placemat. So as long as it's, like I said, completely wet, you won't have any trouble getting them apart. And I know that Aaron was questioning, them coming apart without sticking. I think that, and this was the coffee one, doesn't those rings look neat? I think I should clarify for myself. And doesn't that look like real brick? That was a stencil, and I thought that turned out really cool. And that is on ledger paper. I should clarify that as my papers get drier, they're not so dripping wet, I do tend to move them around a little bit. I'll separate them and kind of lay them in different stacks and move them around. Now, I think if you waited for them to completely dry, if it was all wet, you should still be able to get them apart. And I say that because I've done the RIT dye and watercolor in a pan where I just soaked it with whatever dye I was using, and I would, as they got drier, I would peel them apart in stacks. And that one looked like a wood stencil. That turned out neat. And I didn't have any trouble getting them apart. Now, very neat. I'm just loving these to pieces. I didn't lay them separately until they were almost completely dry, and that was just because that's a neat one. That's a big stencil. It's so pretty. And here's a lot of the mats that I use, the placemats. 99% of my placemats, I'm just going to tell you up front, I got from Temu. I did get a few that were not in this stack from a secondhand shop, and they're just placemats, and they're plastic, and they're wonderful to use for dyeing papers. I use them a lot during the summer for my tea dye. And as I was saying, I didn't have any trouble getting them apart. I truly didn't. But I can't say that I leave them in a stack until they are 100% dry. I do start peeling them apart and moving them. And I think that, I don't know if that's what helps or not, but I'm very, very obsessed with this new way. And like I say, I've done this before, but I don't remember using so many stencils. I usually just layered it. So Aaron, speaking of, Aaron in the Adirondacks sent me, thank you, Joanne. She gifted me some of these from Aaron, and they're book page pockets. And so working on the Florentine journal, I thought, you know, I want to color some of these. Look at these. Aren't they great? So that's what I'm going to do, is I want to use the leftovers that I had, and I added water to them. During the live, you'll see that most of them were full strength, not watered down. But I've watered them down now, and I'm going to do some with my stencils and different things. And I also want to do some wax paper, because I've done wax paper before with watercolor and tea dye, and it's gorgeous. So I thought I wanted to do some in this video and maybe make some pockets out of those, the wax paper, kind of like, you know, these glassine bags is what it would be like. So these are, let's just make one of these pockets real quick before we start, where you can see how to do that. It's a fairly easy fold, I believe, from what I can tell. I just looked at her pockets, and I think I've figured out how she did them. So I'm just going to take some of these out of these are from a Reader's Digest, I believe. Yeah, Reader's Digest. So I'm just going to cut some pages out of it if I can find the middle of the signature. I like to get the whole thing. I can cut them, but I would prefer to find the string. There it is. So I'm just going to, and this book has already been cut by someone else other than myself. There's already been pages taken out just in a different way. So don't think that I'm, you know, desecrating this. You know, I almost feel like it would be better to make the pockets after I color it. Like to lay this out and then fold it later. That way you don't have to worry about that possibly sticking together, since we can't move it. So maybe let's do that. I'll just pull out some pages here that I will dye, and we'll do the pocket afterwards. Okay, so that should be good enough. And then I'm going to get some wax paper. I just used the Dollar Tree wax paper, and I'm just going to random pull out some different sizes here. That one was probably a little bit too big, but that's okay. You can do this same thing with glassine bags that are already made. You know, you don't have to use wax paper. I like using the wax paper as in my signatures as the pages too. So that's why let's see, how many do I have here? 3, I'll do 6. And I'm not going to bore you with dyeing a whole bunch of stuff. I just have a few things here that I want to dye and use up some of this leftover coloring that I had here. Okay, so as you can see, this is the bottom, like a broiling pan, I think, for your oven. So, and another thing, the very first sheet kind of wants to stick to the bottom. So I think this time I'm going to lay down a stencil first so that it doesn't really stick. I don't think I want that stencil, but get one of these bigger ones. Maybe something like this that kind of covers most of the bottom. And I'll use one of these and start it out with that. So I'm just going to wet it really good. And actually, I'm going to do both sides because I think that will really help. And then I'm in my cup here, I have some full strength. This is blue. And I probably am just going to do it on the one side because I don't really, and I'm going to spray it with some of the diluted blue. Ooh, that looks pretty, doesn't it? Well, that's pretty. Okay, so I'm going to move it up here on my stencil a little better. I kind of got it crooked. And I'm going to put another stencil down. And my stencils, I get a lot of my stencils from, again, Temu or secondhand stores. I've been really lucky to get them from secondhand stores. And also you can get them from Facebook. A lot of people de-stash, and you can get things from Facebook. This is a brown, really dark brown actually. And that is a RIT dye color. I got it because someone had told me that you could use it instead of coffee if you didn't like the coffee smell. But I think there were so many different colors of brown to pick from, and I'm pretty sure I used the wrong color. I picked one that was very, very brown. Put another stencil in here. If you don't want yours to be this dark. And another thing I did on mine was I sprayed another color, like, over my stencil. And I found that worked really good too. I liked how that turned out. And I have some smaller stencils. I was going to lay one there on the end. Some little Tim Holtz stencils. And believe it or not, I got the Tim Holtz stencils from a secondhand store. Sure did. I was shocked. Okay, so I'm just going to lay that there, I guess. Spray. All right, now let's do one of these sheets. Kind of getting off-centered, and if they don't lay good, then you run the risk of, or I always, now see how that's bubbling on top? You wouldn't think that it will hold this color, but I promise you it will. It will soak in to this wax paper if you leave it, because it breaks down that barrier, I guess, and it makes a beautiful paper that's actually, you know, in the paper. Here's a big stencil. It's actually probably too big for my pan here, but I'm going to use it anyway. Wonder, I could just cut some of that off, couldn't I? Now that it's all nasty. Cut some of the side of my stencil off. This wouldn't be necessary if I was outside, because I would have it laying on the table and it wouldn't matter if it fit down in there. But I really want it to fit down in my pan. So, and you probably would want to wear gloves. I don't. I have a hard time with gloves. I feel like I can't get a hold of it. Laying down another piece of paper. Isn't that neat? Look at that. I hope it leaves that good of a pattern. Sometimes the wax paper won't necessarily get the pattern that well, but it really will be pretty. So I'm just going to keep layering just like this until I've finished my wax papers and my book page. And then when these are dry, I'll come back and we'll show you how pretty it is. If you want, I can speed this up where you can see how I'm layering and things. Look at that bubble. You would not think that it will take this color, but it really will. Okay, I think this is all I'm going to do for now. I may lay something on top of this lace just to see if it will, transfer up. Here's some of that paper. I'll just lay it down on that. And I was looking for a utility lace because I know that it will take dye really well. but I, of course, didn't have any of that real close. So I just used this lace that I have, mixed the colors in. And I don't know, I held up some papers to the camera. They were kind of gray. That was wallpaper. So I have some wallpaper in here to see how it will take. And the lace. I think that's the only thing kind of different. But I wanted to find another page that I could put down over this lace. Maybe I'll just get another one of the Reader's Digest pages and see if it will pull any of that image on there. It may not. I don't know. Let's wet it really good though, just to give it a chance. And this spray here is mostly water, but it does have a little bit of blue tint to it, so it might come out pretty good. Also, I'm just going to throw this page down too, because no sense hanging on to it. Also, it's kind of sunny outside today, so I think I'm going to set my pan outside and see if it will bake in faster. I know that when I've done wax paper before, and I don't know if you can tell it, but it is already soaking in that color all the way through. But when I've done it before, it's always been that I dried it outside. So I don't know, maybe that's the trick to it. It may not make a difference. Don't know. I'm going to put this outside, and then after it dries, and I may just lay one of these big stencils here on top so that, and I like to spray above it because I do think spraying above my placemats, it gives it a really nice pattern. That will, if it's windy outside, it will just kind of weight it down a little bit. And after these dry, I'll come back and we'll see what we have. This is exciting. I love doing this because you just really never know what you're going to get. So this is how all of my papers turned out. Are they not gorgeous? I love how they turned out. I know I'd say that all the time. I love this, love that, but these really are pretty. And I was really, really pleased with the pockets from Erin. They turned out really well. And I was kind of worried. This is where I got them. They were a gift from my buddy Joanne. Thank you. I love them. I've done so, I'm going to show you what I've done with some of them. But these were some of the lighter ones I've done. These are some of the darker ones. So both sides have beautiful things. So I'm going to be hard pressed to glue them flat to a page. I thought I would show you real quick some of the papers that I thought were interesting. I won't take you through all of them because there's so many. But this was some of the wallpaper. This was the brick wallpaper, so it turned kind of a blue. You can kind of see the stenciling on there, and this is the back where I put that kind of look like running paint. Thought that turned out neat. I was surprised how well this wallpaper, because it was really gray, took that color. And then also this was the glassine bag. I like how that turned out. Isn't that fun? And I did, because I know Debbie Epps says on the wax paper, this was another good one. And I put a big stencil with like paint splatters and stuff, and it turned out really pretty. I know that Debbie says this will run again if you get it wet. I don't know why I would get it completely wet again. I'm sure she's right that it will run, but what I did do on this one is I took some of my art glitter glue and I put it up in the corner, and then I rubbed it to see if any of the paint would come off of my on my hands, and it doesn't. It is actually soaked into that paper. But again, I didn't try to completely submerge it again to see if it would. So these were just, this was actually an envelope that was sent to me by Debbie Ham. Not, I think there was something in it, but of course, you know, anything that's laying here is fair game. One of the other interesting things I wanted to show you was at the very end, I put some lace down, which here is the lace. Isn't it cool? Love how that looks. So grungy, so pretty. But I laid it down on some of the papers to see if it would take the lace, and then I laid something on top. I like how those typewriters turn out. I always like my typewriter paper. That stencil is really one of my favorites. But I was going to show you those papers where I laid on top of the lace, because one side turned out really well and the other didn't. So it must, you know, matter how much I had wet my lace or wet my papers. It's just, again, like I said when I ended, it's kind of like Christmas. You never know what you're going to get. Here's another wallpaper sample that I done previously, and you can't even tell that it's wallpaper anymore, but it was also brick. I didn't do it on camera, but this is one that had the paint splatters on it. This is the one that I laid underneath the lace. See how you can really see that lace? You can really see the pattern of it on this paper. And this is the ghost print from the back side. And then on top I laid, let's see if I can find, isn't this one neat? I love the colors. That was kind of a yellow rit and a blue. Here's some more of that typewriter that I am so crazy about. I really like that. Ooh, look, I think this is how it must have been laying. So there's both of those. There's some journal ledger page that I used, and I liked it the lighter better because you can still see its ledger underneath. It just kind of gave it an older look. And that's some more of the paint splatter. It must have been on the bottom, where the other ones I showed you were on the top. And here are some more of the wax papers with the stencils. Really thought those turned out fun. And I was going to show you how the wax, or some of the, and I can't seem to locate them, some of the lace, the ones that were on the top of the lace, didn't really turn out that great. It didn't hold the lace pattern that well. You can tell there's something underneath, but you really can't tell what it is. And of course, I can't locate them. I had them all laid out so I could show it to you really quick, and now I have nothing. I'm sure, oh, here's one, I bet. Yep, this is it. Oh, well, this is the one I showed you before. I just didn't flip it over. Okay, so this was the stencil I laid on the top. It was kind of a flower. It was a placemat. It, of course, showed up really well. This has, these both were laying on top. I said this was on the bottom, but it wasn't. These were both on top of the lace. So this, you can kind of see the imprint of it. This one, of course, you can see really well. So it just must have mattered the amount of dye I had on one side or the other. But I'm really happy with how they turned out. I want to take a piece of this paper, a book page, and we'll make one of these pockets. Oh my goodness, I'm really happy with those. I want to show you what I made out of those. I'm still working on my Florentine journal, this little journal. I love it. It's turning out so good. And it will have 2 signatures in it. And I think on one of the, maybe, I don't think it was the last video, but the video before, when I did some napkins and I fused it to the packaging on a ream of paper. So what I did was I stenciled it a little bit to try and match the fabric. I took 4 of those pockets. Now remember, this is going to be on either side of the signatures, so they won't be facing each other unless I decide to put it in the middle, which I just might. But what I did was, because I loved both sides, I hinged them together with some fabric. And this one I didn't do it yet. I wanted to save it for on camera where I could show you how I done it. But I hinged them together with fabric, decorated the outsides so that they fold like this. Put some lace, pockets, different things. So this one pocket has 3 pockets. This one has 2. The other side, same. It has 3 in the one pocket. Put a little tab. You open it up. There's 2 pockets on this one. Hinged together with the fabric again. And this is fabric. This is, they call it feed sack material. And I got that from Debbie Ham. And I just kind of grunged it up and used my sander that, thank you, Lindy. I did need this because now I have the paper edger from Karen and I have this that I can use on things that I can't use the edger on. But I wanted to show you that I got this whole bag. It had 3 of these inkers, a bunch of ink pads. I don't even know how many. I think there's 120 pieces in the whole thing. And there's sanding pads like I have on this one. They're the round, they have the round top inkers, the flat top inkers. Not really sure what these are for yet. They just look like little felt pieces. And a whole bunch of sanding blocks. And I think all of this was like $13. I got it off of Amazon, and I will link it in my storefront just in case anybody is interested in getting those. But I thought they turned out neat. So these are the backs of the pockets. I really, really like them. And this little one, initially what I did when I was making these, see when you open that up, they're a little off. Well, I had, initially when I was doing it, I was making it where they would be stair-step. But I ended up not putting 3 together. I just did 2s. And so then it just looked off. So I decided to put another pocket up here where maybe it didn't look so off. And it is a little short pocket, but you could put something like tickets in there, a little ticket, you know, that would look cute. And I got this paper from Facebook Marketplace. Well, that's not true. It was a Facebook group, and a lady was destashing, and she's had this whole bag of Tim Holtz paper that is cut in smaller pieces. And at first I thought, oh goodness, why would you cut that? And now I love it because it's perfect for little pockets, to just like this, to decorate and embellish with. So I will maybe cut some of these down to make the little tickets that go inside. Not really sure. I've been looking for a way to use these for a long time, and now that I've figured it out, I'm kind of like hoarding them again. So this is just one thing that you can do with these pockets. I was thinking I could do something like this. Take 3 of them, or however big your page is, however many you want, and maybe stagger them like this. So you would glue this much of each one, so you have 3 pockets, and maybe just decorate this one. You could do hinge just one piece to the page. You could, I've also thought about, what if I put something in the middle, like a centerpiece, and then hinged them where they all folded in on each other. I don't know. There's a lot of things I want to try with these pockets. Maybe I'll have a video later on with the things that I did discover that I liked and wanted to do. And, you know, you could also write on these. There's a lot of space in here that not only are they pockets, you could write on. So when it opens up, you have all this beautiful writing space that I've just lightly stenciled, light enough that you can certainly write on top of it. So let's see how to make one of those. And I love the rough edges. So I may leave that at the top, even though I don't know that that's the smartest thing, because as I slide things in and out, it might tear. But it's only like that on the back, so I think that will work just fine. So no measuring on this. You just take your piece of paper and overlap slightly, just like that. Want to make sure that your bottoms are even, and then push down. A little bit of your art glitter glue, and I run a little line on this side, right up next to the edge. And then on this side next to the edge, I run another little thin line. push them together. And I don't know exactly, I didn't talk to Erin, so I don't know exactly how she makes hers. This is just how I'm doing it. And I just take a little bit of the edge, probably a 1/2 inch, and fold it up. Just like that. Then I take my scissors, and you could ink around this side before you glue it down if you want that real nice look there. I didn't do that because it has some good coloring from the dye. So then I just miter the corners like this. From where your bend is, you just do it at angle. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you're a particular person, you could take the piece that you cut off, put it on this side, and make sure that they match. I'm not, so then I fold this piece up and cut this off because it really doesn't serve a purpose other than it just bulks up your sheet. And really, before you glued anything, you could do this part so that your cut would be a little straighter than mine is. So now you're left with just the outside piece. Glue that up. And you have a really cool pocket, just like that. So simple. Really nice pocket. And you can do so many things with this. Like I say, I'm just starting to discover the ways I can use mine, and I really liked how it's turning out so far. I am going to ink the top where that's torn to enhance that. I really like that. I'll probably go around the edges. I'm not going to make anything out of this other than of just showing you how to fold it, which I'm sure you may already know. If you don't, I'm happy that maybe this is something that we learned. But those are really fun, really easy, quick, mass make. And I was worried also that because they were already made, they might stick together through the dyeing process. They didn't. I had no issues with getting them apart. Also, I was worried that the glue on the bottom might come off. I didn't have to glue back any of them. They're just perfect. So if you have a whole bunch of them and you think, well, I wish I had dyed them first, you don't need to. You can do them after they're in the pocket state. And then what I was going to show you on this one, and you have fabrics, and maybe you have fabrics like me that are pretty, if you want to go grungy, and you have fabrics that are pretty white or have lots of white in them like this one does. I took my sander and I just pulled some of that edge up. And, you know, that kind of wears on your material too, which is good. And on this one, I had cut it after I glued it down, so I didn't get to pull out any fibers and make it fringed. But you can take your sander and do that on the edge, and it gives it that nice fringed look. Doesn't look like I glued this one all the way to the bottom, so I'm gonna do that really quick. But I didn't glue it flat down because I did want, you know, I wanted it to come up some like that. So I just glued down that little spot right there. And then I just took my distress ink, use any color you want, and went over it, pulling up on those edges to give that grungy brown look, and to kind of, you know, make it not so white and new looking like that. Like that. I saw on this other one, I wanted to add a little bit more to that one as well. Pull up the side of it maybe a little bit more. You could use lace, washi tape, more paper to hinge. I really think that's going to be a really neat page for my journal. This is turning out. I'm really happy with how this is turning out. And I need to hurry up and finish my signatures so that I can get them sewn down. I guess I didn't really pick a place where this was going to go yet, so I will have to do that. But for now, we've got the tabs hanging out the edge, which I really, really liked. And these tabs, what they were, I had a little strip of ledger page that had some overspray on it. So I tore it into pieces, used it to decorate on some of the pages, and then used it for tabs. And I just sewed right down the middle before I put it down. Now, after I put it down, I realized the back was pretty plain, so I did a little stamping there. On this one, before I sewed it or glued it down, I, of course, learned my lesson from this side and put some stamping just to fill it in a little bit. But I really like that. And, you know, this would make a nice center to a signature, wouldn't it? So you open it up and you have all of this writing spot, and you have all of these pockets. Not to mention, you could write on the back of these pockets or decorate them some more. Very nice. That's a lot of fun. I like that. And I like where this is laying too, because you get to see all of the layers. I have more pages that go in this signature, but hopefully soon this is going to be ready to sew onto this, glue in, and this is just turning out to be the best little journal. And this is a 10 by 7 sheet of paper, and I think it's a perfect journal. I mean, look at it. It's a hand-sized journal, really, for me. Perfect. All right, so I'll show this more later on, but my main thing is I wanted to show you what I had done with some of those pockets and how beautiful these papers turned out. So, you know, when I first started, I kind of steered away from mixed media because I didn't want to make the mess, and really, it's not that much of a mess. It really isn't, especially if you have it in a container or on a plastic lid like Debbie did, or this is wallpaper. I think I already told you that. Or like I use the basting pan, you know, that, all of that. And for those, because I had some comments, how did I make these papers, which I've shown you earlier in this video, but I showed some that I did from Debbie's video, or the live with on Lindy Kay and Sean's sales. I'm not saying this to be smart because I didn't know it for a bit. Do you know that you can always go back and watch a live? If you go to their channel, which I linked Lindy's channel on those videos. If you go to her channel and click on live, it'll usually say like home videos, live, shorts, something like that, tabs at the top. Click on the live and you can watch that live, the whole thing. And the best thing about it is, if you don't want to watch a certain part, you can fast forward it, where you can't do that in a live. You just got to listen to the jabber or go away and hope when you come back it's better. So I really hope you like these. I hope that you'll give it a try. These are a lot of fun. I love these pockets. Thank you, Erin and Joanne. Hope you like what I did with them. Joanne always says, I know you'll create something great. She has a lot of faith in me. I don't always know I'll do that, but I am happy with this. I think it turned out really fun. I hope you give it a try. I hope you are inspired. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.